What's up, my comic comrades? Today we're continuing our coverage of Future State Dark Detective, which is the Bruce Wayne Future State Batman book. We already covered issue 1, which you can find the video for that right here. So today we're finishing this miniseries by breaking down issues 2 through 4. With that said, let's dive in. At the end of issue 1, we barely saw Bruce escape the magistrate. However, issue 2 picks up with Bruce in street-level Batman duds saying they're everywhere now. The magistrates knew justice, while hiding in the rafters of a warehouse watching teens steal barrels to resell. And wouldn't you know it, the magistrate Cybers tracks the teens down saying, "Halt, you're in violation of private property restrictions." But of course, Batman, watching all of this, swoops down to take out the Cybers, saving the teens, while saying to himself, Cybers seem to be the workforce for Gotham's current city order. Used to safeguard merchandise, not so much people. Less serve and protect, the Cybers' main task is to seek out and destroy vigilante forces. He continues to say, in this Gotham, vigilantes are the enemy. I am the enemy. Or I would be if I were alive. We then get a flashback of the night Peacekeeper 1 supposedly killed Bruce Wayne. We see Peacekeeper 1 chasing down Bruce after he shot him in the stomach, at which point Bruce shoots Peacekeeper with a grappling gun. It holds him off, but not for long. As Bruce continues to run, Peacekeeper gets back up and then shoots him in the leg. Batman then throws one of his batarangs into the ground and jumps into the river. Bruce is greeted by a floating dead body in said water, one of Gotham's many John Does. And lucky for Bruce, Peacekeeper 1 thinks this dead floating body is Bruce, so he continues to shoot at it, thinking he's just killed Bruce Wayne. But as he keeps shooting into what he thinks is Bruce's back, that batarang Bruce threw down earlier detonates, causing Peacekeeper to go flying, giving Bruce a diversion so he could swim away. So all of this finally explains to us why the Magistrate and Peacekeeper 1 thinks Bruce/Batman is dead, but also how Bruce got away. The comic then takes us back to present, where Bruce has just defeated and dismantled the Cyber who was attacking the teens in the warehouse. He then changes out of his batsuit and takes some of the Cyber parts with him in a backpack. We then see Bruce go back to his new place, a crappy apartment that is the only house in Gotham still using a physical key to open the door. But it gets better. We find out Bruce is renting a room from a crazy old man named Noah who believes aliens are constantly trying to mind control him. But Bruce doesn't care because none of his craziness or theories involve pursuing information on him. We also learn that Noah has a daughter named Hannah who takes care of him and brings him stuff, but she becomes more important once we hit issue 3. Anyway, Bruce makes his way down to his room where he says to himself, no windows, rent in cash, and a lock on the door which I fitted with some modifications in case Noah gets curious. And he says this as he dumps the Cyber parts out of his backpack, as we also see a corkboard with pictures, blueprints, and newspaper clippings which Bruce is using to figure out how to take out the Magistrate, as well as what their true intentions are. We then briefly see Hannah get into a confrontation with the lady trying to take a picture of her father's house, but she quickly scares her off with a nice threat and some solid intimidation. Meanwhile, we see Bruce suit up as Batman and head out on an old motorcycle that Noah sold to him for the price of fixing his TV. Bruce then starts talking to himself about Carl Bennington, who's the CEO of PlexiTech, as he heads to his place. Apparently, PlexiTech is one of Gotham's newest mega corporations and the manufacturer of the Magistrate's armor and ballistics. And when Batman arrives at Bennington's place, he discovers one of the Magistrate's biggest secrets, nano drones. And when he catches one with his hand, things get really bad as a crap ton of normal drones show up ready to take Batman out. But of course, Batman being Batman escapes and takes this nano drone back to his place to dissect it. It's here we learn that Wayne Enterprises started developing microtech for surveillance. They were going to use it to get into tunnels, to put eyes on Gotham's nooks and crannies. It was still in the testing phase before the Joker War happened. Bruce tells himself not that we were going to put it into the market, because like Lucius warned him, building it would be putting it into the world, to be used for or against us. Which Bruce agrees with. As Bruce is dissecting this nano drone, he hears Noah yelling for him saying, "Hey Jeff, you got a TV down there? You got to get rid of it." If I didn't mention it earlier, of course Bruce did not give Noah his real name, which is why he's calling him Jeff. Anyway, Noah continues to say, "They're everywhere, damn it," as we see Noah smashing his TV while Bruce coming upstairs popping his head out saying, "Yes, they are." Which brings us to issue 3. Issue 3 starts off with Batman talking about Carl Bennington, reminding us he's the CEO of PlexiTech, but he also says he's a terrible golfer and the organizer of many charity golf tournaments. Money raised by people who could solve so many problems if they would just pay their taxes. When you played a Bennington tournament, it was his game, his rules. Really the only rule for Carl was, there was no rules. As we see Carl in a chair playing virtual golf. Then a panel shows us his girlfriend walking in saying, "Oh my God, Carl." And then on the next page, we see her say again, "Oh my God, he's been shot. Oh my God." As we see a bloody Carl sitting in his gamer chair. Then on the next page, Bruce says, the magistrate announced the murderer was suspected to be connected to vigilante activity. A lot of vigilante action in a city that also claims to be safer than ever now that the magistrate is in charge. Of course, actual vigilantes would have every reason to kill a corporate tick like Bennington, but why this corporate tick? Bruce goes on to say he had something to do with CB Enterprises. They were working foreign markets, selling cutting-edge technological advances in surveillance. It was all a flimsy shell company Bennington set up to expand his market. But is greed a reason to murder a CEO? In Magistrate Magistrate's Gotham this Gotham? Yes. Plexitech's public business was armor, but I have serious doubts anyone killed Carl over a set of knee pads. I think he died for the same reason Bruce Wayne had to die. Not because he was greedy, but because he was a threat to their control of Gotham. We then see Batman perching on the side of buildings as he does, but this time he's searching the Gotham City skyline looking for the Magistrate's next level of law and order. Surveillance. Micro-surveillance. Cloaked mini drones. Batman goes on to say most people are used to the idea of being watched. So what level of surveillance are you into when you need to murder a man to keep it a secret? Batman then says, so tonight I'm going fly fishing. As we learn, he spread out electrical netting all over this city, negatively charged to avoid detection, and literally catch these nano drones as if he was actually fly fishing. But when he starts pulling some of the nano drones out of the net, they start to detonate, or at least one does, but it's enough to alert the Magistrate's other big drones. So of course they start attacking Batman and chasing him through Gotham City once again. The chase ultimately ends with Batman punching one of the drones into the ground in a nearby alley. But unknown to him, another drone is behind him and about to fire, but some mystery person stops it before it's able to. And on the next page, we see this mystery person is none other than Jace Fox, the next Batman. The next Batman says, you know who I am? And Batman replies, yeah, I guess I do. The next Batman then asks, who the hell are you? Before Bruce answers, he says to himself, Batman, you're in my suit, always a new hero to replace the old, because it's about the symbol, not a person. That man is dead. Long live Batman. Telling us that Bruce isn't upset that someone's taken over his mantle, but as cool as any other Batman might be, we all know there's always gonna be one true Batman. Bruce Wayne. Anyway, on the next page, Bruce answers him aloud saying, let's just say I'm busy. The next Batman then replies, whatever you're busy doing, it's not safe. Bruce then tells him, I'm just going about my business. The next Batman replies, you keep this up, you're gonna get hurt or killed. Stay home tomorrow night. Bruce then finally says, yeah, I pretty much invented that line, as the two walk away from one another. Now, the cover of this issue led us to believe there was gonna be a confrontation between the two Batman, which I would have loved to see, but in fact, they basically just had a mutual understanding for one another. Bruce understood why this new guy has taken up his mantle and Batsuit, and Jace understands that once Batman, always Batman, but also that Bruce is the Batman. Later, we see Bruce back in his place with a makeshift bat computer that's literally on a fold-out table. And we learn that after a dozen rounds of misfires and a small desk fire, he hacked into the nano drones and eventually figured out that these damn things are everywhere. At which point he says to himself, surprise, surprise, so much for defending Gotham's rights, with the exception of the right to privacy. It's everyone, all the time. 24-hour surveillance. In the streets, in people's home, blowing past an invasion of privacy to full-on panopticon. As we see on Bruce's computer screen that with these drones, the Magistrate can literally watch you taking a crap if they wanted to. It's here Bruce uncovers the Magistrate and Peacekeeper's true purpose and intentions. Hacking into the nanodrone server, he sees footage of Carl Bennington's estate on the night he was killed. And 26 minutes before the public police report's estimated time of death, Peacekeepers were there, meaning they killed him. Bruce goes on to say if this was the Peacekeepers, this job goes to the top of the Magistrate, Gotham's shining new force of justice. Assassins. The pinnacle of the new order, murdering in secret, and not for the first time, as he reflects on Peacekeeper 1, who supposedly killed him. He goes on to say for actions that require great force and precision, to remove a CEO about to sell the technology they're planning to use to solidify the grip on the city. Murdering me must have meant they had other tech they wanted from Wayne Enterprises, all the things we wouldn't put out on the market, because they were too dangerous. Then after this huge revelation, Hannah comes barging into Noah's place yelling at her dad for putting a bullhorn on top of the building, but her dad says, it's a signal interrupter. Cuts alien signals from coming into the house. She then says, Dad, it's a bullhorn and people complained. Aliens are both rare and very busy. They are not watching you, okay? She then yells at Bruce for not stopping him. After yelling at both her dad and Bruce, she storms out of their place, at which point Bruce decides to watch her leave from the top of the building. And he does so with infrared specs he made with Noah's swimming goggles and some tech he pulled from the cyber. He then says to himself, noises, what is Noah hearing? And as he looks at Hannah, he sees several nanodrones following her. So of course he hops on his motorcycle to follow her, saying to himself, why are they watching her? Hannah said she had lots of jobs, but I never asked any more than that. I should have though, as he follows her to Magistrate headquarters. Now knowing that she works for the Magistrate, he returns home only to see that her being there led a crap ton of Magistrate drones to his home. So he heads inside with a baseball bat to wreck shop while saying, no one can hide. They know everything. They know where I am. They're coming. This brings us to the fourth and final issue of the Dark Detective miniseries. It opens up continuing what we learned last issue, that Hannah, the daughter of Bruce's roommate Noah, works for the Magistrate. And not only that, she's a programmer for them. We see she's in a meeting with Peacekeeper 1 and several other Magistrate employees. As we see, Peacekeeper is pretty pissed that they've been having so many issues with their drones lately. And when I mean so many issues, I mean the fact that Batman has been able to find and take several of them out. Peacekeeper 1 then takes off his mask and says to his surveillance team, what you have outlined is a liability. And until there are none, until we can account for every unit, we are vulnerable. And I will not accept vulnerable at this point in our mission. I want reports on all missing or damaged drones. all of them. He goes on to say, you have 30 minutes to produce a report. Dismissed. He then tells Hannah, I'm gonna need that report on security systems by end of day. She says, okay, but I just have to get something to eat first. Right after this, her dad calls her saying Jeff is on the roof. She tells him, Dad, I'm at work. He then tells her, he's up to something, damn it. She says, okay, fine, I'll be there soon. The comic then shows us Bruce on the roof putting up an actual signal disruptor made out of 6 nano drones with a few extra elements for kick in place of Noah's alien disruptor unit. Bruce then goes back down to his computer to make sure everything is up and running, at which point Hannah comes barging in saying, what's going on? Where's my dad? He just looks at her saying, Hannah, and she then asks, what are you doing with that bag? Are you robbing him? He tells her no. She then asks again, more frantically this time, where is my dad? Bruce tells her he's safe for now. She's like, what does that mean? What have you done to him? He then says, Hannah, I'm sorry, as he shoots her in the neck with a sedative. He then puts Hannah and Noah in a creepy van, as kidnappers tend to do, taking them away from Noah's place. And good thing he did, because remember last issue, those drones tracking Hannah led the magistrate right to Bruce's home. He took care of them, but they're back again looking for Bruce. And this time they invade Noah's home and blow it up. So it's a good thing Bruce kidnapped Hannah and Noah just in the nick of time. When Bruce brings both of them to a safe house, Hannah wakes up asking, why are you doing this to us? And he says, I need to ask you some questions. But first, I drugged you because I needed to get you out of the house and somewhere safe. My name isn't Jeff, it's Bruce Wayne. I'm being hunted by the magistrate. And they had Noah's location. They raided it an hour ago. Now it's gone. She then tells Bruce, I was hired years ago to work as a programmer for the magistrate, but in actuality, I've been spying on them for months. I'm gonna expose them. Everything. As we learn, she has incriminating recordings of the Magistrate and Peacekeeper 1. She literally has a recording of Peacekeeper 1 saying, when there is nothing we cannot see, there is nothing we cannot control, and our control or justice will be absolute. Bruce is basically like, okay, awesome, but I still need you to stay here for now. I have cloaking tech on this place. They won't find you. She then says, they'll see you. He says, no, they won't. Stay here. Then on the next page, we learn that Bruce has incorporated updated cloaking Wayne tech into his batsuit, which allows him to break into the Magistrate headquarters. Now inside of Magistrate headquarters, Batman sees that Hannah didn't listen to him, but instead is also inside of Magistrate headquarters, trying to get all the evidence she needs to take down the Magistrate. And she's doing all this by downloading it onto a USB stick. Batman then tells her, you have 5 minutes to get out of here. After the download is complete, he tells her, get out of here, now. And as she starts running out, Batman gets tackled by Peacekeeper 1. The two then start fighting while the building's on fire because if I didn't mention it earlier, Batman set off explosives. That's right, his goal is to literally burn Magistrate down to the ground. Anyway, as Batman and Peacekeeper 1 continue to fight, Hannah is forced to swallow the USB drive when she's confronted by Cybers. Elsewhere, Batman and Peacekeeper 1 continue to beat the crap out of one another, and right before the countdown on the bomb hits 0, we see Hannah say, it was Bruce Wayne. Batman is... The Peacekeeper then says, you die today for good, Bruce Wayne, with Batman saying no. I'm burning it all down. The end of shadows is the light, as we see the Magistrate building completely blow up, seemingly killing Hannah, Peacekeeper 1, and Batman, with the story to be continued in Detective Comics issue 1034. And that, my friends, is the Future State Dark Detective miniseries. I really enjoyed this miniseries. It was nice to see a fugitive Batman on the run with no expensive tech and literally just his wit and fighting skills. I'm just curious to see where it all goes in Detective Comics, so we'll probably cover all that when that title releases. But again, I thoroughly enjoyed this miniseries. I think it was great to see a Bruce Wayne Batman story that was different from what we're used to. But what do you guys think? Let us know down in the comments. And just like that, that brings today's episode of Variant to a close. But if you like today's episode, be sure to check out this one right here. And if you like all of our content, be sure to subscribe, like, and comment. It always helps out the channel. But I will see you guys next time when I talk about all things comics.